Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victory and it's so lovely to have you back. So today is going to be the start of a new series. I feel like I'm always starting something new on this channel. But anyways, today is going to be the start of a new series that is going to be about characters in the Bible. And I'm going to kick off the series with the book of Ruth. Today I'm going to be dissecting and going deep into the book of Ruth as the Holy Spirit leads and as much as I can. I'm going to make it very simple for those who don't know anything about Christianity or the Bible. If you like Christian content like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe as that helps the channel grow. Thank you so much in advance and let's get into the video. So the story of Ruth can actually be found in the book of Ruth, and this is the 8th book in the Old Testament. If you have a Bible and you go to the glossary, you can find Ruth as the 8th book in the Old Testament. Basically, the book of Ruth is kind of a popular one, but like I said, I'm also doing this for people who have never ever picked up a Bible, and I hope you learned something new today. So the book of Ruth has 4 chapters. It's a short one really compared to other books in the Bible, but yeah, I'm going to be starting with this today. So I'll be starting from chapter 1. In chapter 1 of Ruth, the story begins with a man called Elimelech, and there was a famine in his home city, which was Bethlehem, and therefore he had to carry his family. He had to move with his family to the country of Moab. His family consisted of himself, his wife Naomi, and 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. After they had moved to the country of Moab, Elimelech ended up passing away, and then his 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, married 2 wives, which were Orpah and Ruth. Unfortunately, the 2 sons of Elimelech, Mahlon and Chilion, ended up passing away as well. Naomi, who was Elimelech's wife, she heard news that the famine in their hometown Judah was coming to an end, so she decided to leave the country of Moab. And she packed up her stuff. She took her 2 daughters-in-law, which was Orpah and Ruth, and they all decided to leave the country of Moab back to their hometown. On the way from Moab back to Judah, she called them and she told them to go back to their families, that there was no point of them coming along with her, as the thing that brought them together was the 2 ladies married to her sons who had now passed away, unfortunately. So she encouraged them to go back home because she probably felt like she didn't have anything to offer them anymore. She even said that her sons are dead, and even if she could give birth to more sons, obviously they would be too young for the 2 women to marry. She encouraged them to go, and eventually Orpah decided to go back home, but Ruth clung to her and told her, may God even strike her dead if she leaves Naomi, that she was going to stay with her, that her people will be her people, her God will be her God. She said, girl, we're together for life. I'm not going anywhere. After saying that Ruth was really determined to stay with Naomi, she gave up and she just continued and didn't say anything else again from that point. Later on, they arrived at Bethlehem, which was in Judah. This is the entirety of chapter 1. Everything I'm saying, I'll actually encourage you to read it by yourself, but this is just a brief summary and just telling stories. So chapter 2 kicks off with a wealthy and influential man called Boaz, and this Boaz was a relative of Elimelech, who was Naomi's late husband. One day Ruth got up and she told Naomi, like, I'm going into the fields to, harvest crops. Her strategy was to be behind the people who are actually harvesting. So whatever they left behind, she would just take it and put it into her bag and bring it back for them to eat later on. After she explained what she was going to do to Naomi told her that she could go. The field that she ended up going to was one that was owned by Boaz. While Ruth was doing what she said she was going to do, which was going to harvest whatever scrap that was left behind from the people who were actually harvesting, Boaz came in and noticed her because she was working so hard and asked, oh, who is this lady and what is she doing here? The foreman replied and said that, oh, that is Ruth, Naomi's daughter-in-law, and she's been working so hard. She's been at it. She has only taken a few breaks. She's been very hardworking. So after listening to what the foreman had to say, Boaz immediately went to her and told her that she could keep doing what she was doing, and he basically favored her. After speaking with him, she thanked him. Ruth thanked Boaz, and she replied, like, what did I even do to get this kind of favor from you? I'm just a foreigner in this land. Because remember, Ruth was from Moab. She was actually not from Judah. She was not from Bethlehem, Judah. She was a foreigner who was married to Naomi's son. So she just replied that, oh, I'm a foreigner. Like, what have I done to get this kind of favor or these blessings from you? Boaz replied her and said that basically what I'm doing is nothing compared to what you've done for Naomi, because he had probably heard what Ruth did by coming back, clinging on to Naomi and making sure that she was okay. She didn't leave her side for one day. So Boaz was kind of using this to thank Ruth for everything that she had done. He even went on to offer her food, everything that she wanted. She ate to her fill and even had more than enough to take home. Later on, she went back. After eating, she went back to work, and Boaz went to tell his men, the people working on the harvest fields, that they should let her gather as much as she wanted, which was what she did. She gathered up so much and she went back home to Naomi. And when she went back to Naomi, Naomi was shocked. She was like, okay, maybe she was probably thinking that she would come back with like maybe a small bag, but she came back with a lot, and Naomi was shocked, like, oh, whose field did you go to? Where did you go to that you got all this amount of food? Ruth explained to Naomi who she met and whose field she went to. When Ruth told Naomi's field she went to that she got all that amount of food, Naomi blessed Boaz. She was happy, and she encouraged Ruth to keep going to that particular field, because most people will not allow her to harvest as much as she did at Boaz's field. That was what she ended up doing until the end of that season, and even in the next season when it was time to harvest wheat, she kept on doing what she was doing, and Boaz let her. And she did this all while living with Naomi. Starting off in chapter 3, after some time had passed, Naomi called Ruth and told her that she wanted to find her a home, a permanent home where she would be provided for. Boaz was the one that Naomi had in her mind to set Ruth up with. The reason why Boaz was the one she wanted for Ruth was because he had already been kind to her. He had met Ruth already and favored her, and also Naomi was a close relative to Boaz. Naomi literally called her and she was like, girl, I want to set you up with this guy. So she instructed her to wash up, have her bath, wear her nicest clothes, spray on perfume. She was like, make sure you're looking fresh, and then this is what I'm going to tell you to do, and I want you to do exactly what I'm going to tell you. So she told her to go to Boaz's field. She told her to go to the threshing floor, and she should make sure that Boaz doesn't see her before Ruth wanted him to see her, that she should go and she should just find somewhere to stay. And when Boaz was done eating and drinking and he would come to lie down, she should go to his feet and just lay there. And Ruth did everything that Naomi instructed her to do. When Boaz looked down and he saw somebody lying there, he was like, who are you and what are you doing here? And Ruth went on to explain that Ruth was the person that he had met before, and that was Naomi's daughter-in-law. She basically introduced herself to him, and she called him her family's redeemer. And Boaz was pleased with her at this point. He was happy with her, and he was happy that she didn't go to any other person, but she came to him specifically. Boaz basically explained that, okay, though he was a close relative, there was actually someone else that had a closer relationship to Naomi and Ruth than him, and he had to go and tidy up things with that person to see if the person was interested in marrying Ruth, and if the person was not, that he would surely marry her. But if the person was interested, then she would have to marry that person. But he made it clear to her that he was going to sort it out very soon and get back to her on what they were going to do. He let Ruth stay. When the sun came up, he sent her back with food, more than enough food for Ruth and Naomi. When Ruth got home and she told Naomi everything that had happened, Naomi told her that, girl, just wait. That man he's not going to rest, and he's going to settle everything in one day. Don't worry, just calm down, okay? It's just a matter of time, okay? I love an intentional man. Oh my goodness. So that was the end of chapter 3, and we're going into the last and final chapter, which is chapter 4. So this chapter begins with Boaz meeting the other close relative like he said he was going to do in chapter 3. And just for easy comprehension purposes, I'm going to call this close relative John. Okay, so Boaz met up with John and told him that, oh, remember Naomi? Yes, Naomi. She has land that she wants to sell, her late husband and her late son's land that she wants to sell. off to someone, and John was like, of course, yes, I want to buy, I'm interested. But then Boaz was like, "Oop, there is a clause. There are terms and conditions that the land actually has to come with Ruth. So if John was going to end up buying the land, he had to marry Ruth as a package deal." After hearing about the full deal, John was like, I don't think I will be able to do that. I don't think so. I think you'll be in a better position to do this. The reason why John said no was because he felt it was going to endanger his own estate. So he told Boaz, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this and, marry Ruth. So I think you should do it. And then Boaz was like, yes. Thank you so much. Boaz went on to buy the land and he ended up marrying Ruth. God blessed her and she gave birth to a son. Naomi loved this child like her own child. She nursed the baby by herself. She named the child Obed. And if you know anything about, the line of David, you know that Obed was the father of Jesse. And Jesse was the father of King David, which is so cool, right? And that was actually how the book of Ruth ended. So I'm just going to be giving you my thoughts about this book. I know it was a bit short, but that's everything. I'll still encourage you to read it by yourself. It's just 4 chapters. It's very short, actually, as you can tell. It's very short and it's a wonderful book. And there are so many things to learn from that. It was short and sweet, but there are a lot of things that I learned from it, and I'll tell you this. So these are the things that I picked up from reading the book of Ruth. First thing that stood out to me is perseverance. The beginning of the book of Ruth. Naomi was going to move back home to Bethlehem from Moab with herself, obviously, and her daughter-in-laws. And she told them to go. Halfway through the journey, she turned back and she was like, I don't think you guys should come with me. You have your families. I think you should go back to your families. The marriage is over because her sons were dead. So there's no need for you to come with me. Orpah went back, but Ruth persevered. She stayed, even though Naomi gave her very valid reasons as to why she should go back. Of course, the marriage was done. There was no point. And I think Ruth was still very young at that point. She could have gone back to her hometown, married someone else, started a family for herself. But she decided to cling on to Naomi, even though she didn't know what was going to happen. It teaches how important perseverance is. The second thing I learned is the importance of obedience. So Naomi would give Ruth instructions, and throughout the book she never asked questions like, why should I do this? Why should I go there? She listened to Naomi. She did everything Naomi told her to do. Then she ended up reaping the results of her obedience. The third thing for me is redemption, if you will, because I'll give you a little bit of backstory about the people of Moab, which is where Ruth came from. Moab is a tribe that started in a very, very strange way. So there was a person called Lot who was Abraham, the father of the Israelites. Abraham had a nephew called Lot, and Lot had 2 daughters, I believe. After some unfortunate events, the 2 daughters told themselves that, you know what, let's have children. But I don't, oh God, that story is messed up. It's a very messed up story. Well, yes, the 2 girls decided to get their father drunk, and they slept with their father, and then they had their son. And Moab was one of those sons. The tribe that came from that son is where Ruth was from. So Ruth came from a very strange tribe. But then that did not stop God from making her to be part of the people that were in the line of David. If you don't know, Jesus also came from the line of King David. So that makes me think that it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what background or even what you've done before. Because the next person I'll be talking about is someone similar to Ruth, who was also, she should have been written off by all means, but she still ended up joining the line of King David and our Lord Jesus. So that's what I'm going to be talking about next, and I hope you tune in for that. I would say the last thing I learned from the book of Ruth, I would say, is to be hardworking. I feel as though that Boaz noticed Ruth because of how hardworking she was. Even though she was not supposed to be on that field, like I explained, she still, did it diligently. That was one of the reasons why Boaz looked upon her favorably. So being hardworking, it really does pay when you are focused and when you put whatever work or job you've been given, you put in all your effort, it does pay at the end of the day. So that brings me to the end of this video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that the channel can keep growing. Thank you so much for staying till the end. I appreciate you, I love you, but Jesus loves you more, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Anything, just ignore I'm saying rubbish. Stick to your script.